I've been asked to share my insights into the metaverse, but I regret to inform you the metaverse is dead, or at least that's what people want to believe. But they're wrong. The metaverse is coming. It's like Thanos. It's inevitable.
I am inevitable.
If you're in this room, you likely don't need a lot of convincing of that. But most people are skeptical, if not outright resistant to the idea of a metaverse. I prefer the real world. Who wants a computer strapped to your face? We already consume too much media. I don't want to live in Mark Zuckerberg's artificial world without legs. They focus on the negative aspects of the metaverse, and they seem triggered by the term metaverse. What's up with that? Why does the idea of the metaverse freak people out so much? Now, some of it could be attributed to Meta and Mark Zuckerberg co-opting the term when they rebranded the company. But I think there's more to it than that. I love this quote on the conference website by Abhishek Shukla. The metaverse is not just a virtual escape, but a gateway to a new reality where possibilities are limited only by our imagination. A new reality. People don't want anyone messing with their reality. Reality is what anchors our existence. It creates comfort and security, knowing that we can differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. I can understand how the idea of another reality might make people uncomfortable. Alternate realities, like that's the stuff of movies. What is reality? Philosophers have debated this for thousands of years. For me, it's the sum of our experience as a human. What we've read, what we've learned, what we've thought, what we've seen, everything we've experienced is woven into a fabric we think of as reality. And each of us has our own version of reality that we cling to. The Toltec spiritual guide Don Miguel Ruiz wrote in his book, The Four Agreements, "You live in a world of illusion made by images of light, of virtual reality." What Ruiz suggests, and neuroscience backs up, is while we believe what we see in the world is real, it's a construct of our mind, hence a virtual reality. When we see a tree, are we really seeing the tree? Or are we seeing the light reflecting off of the tree? Scientists know that the lens in our eye casts that light onto our retina upside down. And our brain knows to decipher the electrical signals coming from our retina right side up. They call that perception. Even though we see it upside down, we perceive it right side up. So what we hear, see, touch is all just our perception of energy. Our eyes take in the reflections off light, off physical matter. Our visual cortex interprets that into images. Our tympanic membranes pick up vibrations in the air as waves of energy and send them to our temporal lobes. That creates the experience of sound. Our skin transmits electrical signals to our brainstem and thalamus, creating the sensation of touch. All of our reality, our experience, is our perception of that energy, all of it. Which means we're all living in our own unique perception of reality. But that's not what we really believe, is it? We believe that we're all in a shared reality, one to rule them all. It's this sense of there's just one reality that might be making people so uncomfortable with the concept of a metaverse or a new one. Our identity, our sense of who we are, is tied to our perception and our belief that there's one reality. And when you mess with that, people are bound to freak out a little bit. And when that new reality threatens to make you a cartoon character and strip you of your legs, you can see why people might reject it. And what's potentially rife with privacy violations and identity theft and fraud and abuse and harassment and AI and bots and all the scary things, people will fight to hold on to their current reality no matter how fucked up it might be. What do they say about the devil you know? So how do we talk about a metaverse without freaking people out so we can actually all work together to build this new reality filled with possibility? So let's discuss what is the metaverse. But let's talk about it from a practical perspective. First, let's look at what it's not. It's not about Web3 or NFTs or coins or decentralization. You do not need any of these things to build the metaverse. I know that there's a lot of discussion about these things, probably at this conference, and I don't want to dissuade that. These are all tools that may or may not become part of the Metaverse toolset. And we need new tools to create something as radical as a Metaverse. Another set of tools and technologies that are absolutely required for the Metaverse are virtual reality headsets, and in the future, augmented reality glasses. But that still might be 5 or 10 years away. We need these headsets to experience the Metaverse because virtual reality is the interface for the Metaverse. Now, the growth of the VR market's been slow, and to those of us in the market, it can feel glacial. People ask me all the time why the market's not growing faster. And my answer has always been friction. Using VR is just too hard. The user experience sucks. From setting up the equipment to navigating the menus and applications, it's all just too hard. Now, I've lived through much of the computer age, and I've seen how at every stage of growth, it's a user experience innovation that drives the market to the next level. And they all seem to come from one company, Apple.
And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
Now, I used the first Apple II in computer in high school, and I programmed a text adventure game on a monochrome screen in 1981. I received a 99 grade on that by my teacher because he didn't believe anything could be perfect. In my first business, I used a ledger and a pencil and a 10-key calculator to do spreadsheets. And then I typed reports on an IBM Selectric typewriter, where I had to use something called liquid paper in a little jar to undo my many typos. That's how old I am. I was watching the Super Bowl on TV in 1984 when Apple shattered everything with the launch of the Macintosh computer, introducing the world to the computer mouse. I bought an Apple Mac Plus as soon as I could afford one, and I created a client database using a program called FileMaker Pro to keep track of all my contacts, so I could finally toss out my shoebox full of index cards with names and phone numbers written on them. I also got rid of my typewriter and my 10-key calculator. Apple and the mouse kickstarted the PC revolution. In 2001, I was working at a digital music company, and we made this software called RioPort that powered most of the MP3 players on the market. Then Steve Jobs unveiled the iPod with the click wheel. Jobs promised 1,000 songs in our pocket and killed the MP3 player as we knew it. He kicked off the digital music revolution. Then 6 years later, on June 29, 2007, Steve Jobs took the stage at the Macworld Conference in San Francisco, about 6 blocks away from where I was working on the first out-of-home touchscreen media network. Jobs introduced us to the next computer interface that would change everything. A touchscreen with multi-touch featuring pinch and zoom on the iPhone. Apple started off the smartphone revolution. I've been in every single market that Apple entered and ultimately revolutionized for the last 2 decades. At each stage, they reinvented the market I was working in with a new way of interacting with technology that made it easier. The mouse, the click wheel, the touchscreen. And on June 5th of this year, Apple unveiled the Vision Pro, and I knew they'd done it again.
One more thing. This is a day that's been years in the making. Introducing Apple Vision Pro.
Apple is teaching the entire XR industry how to interact with a 3-dimensional digital world, the Metaverse. But it's not a new device that's going to make the difference. It's not a controller or a wand or a glove or even the headset itself. It's something that most of us are born with and probably take for granted. We're going to be using our voice, our eyes, and our hands to interact with the Metaverse. And that's the way we communicate. Voice, eyes, hands. For the first time in history, computing is going to feel more natural, which is why even tech skeptics like Marcus Brownlee describe using the Vision Pro as feeling like magic. And just like the mouse and the touchscreen, every other manufacturer will copy it. Samsung, Google, and Qualcomm already postponed their new headset announcement so they can go back to the drawing board and design a competitive product that will ultimately drive down prices and increase access for everyone. Now, this new user interface is what will allow virtual reality to explode over the next 5 or 10 years because it's going to feel human. It's not going to happen overnight. It'll take a few iterations before prices come down and the feature set's just right. But the end is now in sight. A staggering amount of new technology and tools, not only from Apple, but Meta, Qualcomm, Unity, Unreal, Google, and hundreds if not thousands of smaller companies is required for the metaverse to exist. But the technology needs to be invisible. It needs to drop into the background. Science fiction legend Arthur C. Clarke said, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." Apple is making the interface to the metaverse feel like magic. And there's one more thing they've built into the Vision Pro that'll make it easier for people to wade into the waters of the metaverse: the reality dial. Apple added a knob to the headset like the one on their Apple Watch that lets users dial in just the right mix of realities. Say you want to stay grounded in this reality, dial it back. You want to go full metaverse, dial it forward. Apple understands you can't just shove everyone into the deep end of the pool before you teach them how to swim. This is why they didn't mention virtual reality or metaverse even once in their launch video. But believe me, Apple understands what the metaverse is. Even if they refuse to use the term, opting for spatial computing, don't be fooled. The Apple Vision Pro is a virtual reality headset, and the Vision Pro shows us how to interface with the metaverse. So what is the metaverse? The metaverse is not the tool. It's not the technology. The metaverse is the experience. It's about how humans experience digital technology more naturally in 3 dimensions, the way we experience nature. The metaverse is about making computing more human. It's about combining the digital and the physical and bringing it all together in a seamless experience where moving between the physical and digital worlds feels natural, not scary, not disruptive. Eventually, digital will feel just as real as physical. The youngest generations already get that. To them, virtual or real, it's all the same thing. Let's see what Keanu Reeves has to say about that.
I don't know. I was having dinner at a friend's house, this director, and he had some kids, and there was like a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, and they hadn't seen the film The Matrix. And so the director's like, well, why don't you just tell them what it's about? So I start to say, well, there's this guy who's in a kind of virtual world, and he finds out that there's a real world, and he's really questioning what's real and not real, and he really wants to know what's real. And the young girl was like, why? And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, who cares if it's real? And I was like, what, you don't care if it's real? And she was like, no.
Isn't that wild?
It's awesome.
But how do we get the rest of the world to see that this new reality, this metaverse, might be for them? That's where the killer app comes in. When personal computers first became available in the early 80s, people routinely asked, why do you need a PC? Sound familiar? Most people like me had typewriters and calculators, and we had arcades we could go to if we wanted to play video games. But then the internet happened, and with the internet came email. Email was the first killer app of the PC era. Instant written communication, no more snail mail. AOL made "You've Got Mail" the dopamine hit of the 1990s. Today there's over 300 billion emails every single day. Email changed the way we communicate. And according to one of the foremost experts on augmented and alternative communication, Dr. Janice Light, communication is the essence of human life. It's about touching other people and having our lives touched by others. I remember being in my office at the digital media company eCast in San Francisco. We had an open office setting, no doors, walls, offices. People who sat a few feet from me who could clearly see me, instead of coming over and talking to me, would email me to ask a question. Then the BlackBerry gave us email away from the computer with tiny little keyboards that forced us to type shorter messages. And then smartphones made sending text messages easy. And then tech companies gave us Slack and Messenger and WhatsApp and LinkedIn, and I can't even remember all the different platforms where we're constantly typing at each other all day long with short messages. No nuance, no feeling, no soul, just characters. Our communications became more frequent, but more fragmented and less meaningful. We need to look no further than Twitter, or X as it's now called, where we send 500 million messages a day, each limited to 280 characters, which is why Twitter was most recently ranked the most toxic of all social apps. How can you effectively communicate a complete thought in a tweet? We've never been more disconnected at a time where we have more ways to communicate, because our communications are rapid, off the cuff, and might I even say thoughtless. To bring us back together and to heal our society, we need better communication. And virtual telepresence holds the key. Telepresence will be the killer app of the metaverse. The first time I experienced virtual telepresence was in an app called Spatial. And even with my shitty free-floating avatar, I was shocked at how present I felt with the others in the room. The ability to suspend disbelief after we've been immersed in VR for a while is quite remarkable. The first time I realized that virtual can feel real was when I tried Zero Latency, a free roam VR experience developed by a startup in Melbourne, Australia. In 2015, I put on a backpack PC and a headset from Oculus, and I was handed a rifle. And I walked around a trade show floor shooting at alien bugs, winding my way through a labyrinth of corridors on a space station. And suddenly I was faced with climbing across a rock bridge suspended over a molten pool of lava. And I froze. My feet wouldn't move, and my subconscious mind said, "No fucking way are you climbing on those rocks." Now my conscious mind was busy making fun of me, saying, "Don't be silly, you're walking on a flat concrete floor at a trade show." Eventually my two minds found a compromise, and I shuffled my feet like somebody had tied my shoelaces together. A year later it happened again, when I was playing a game and I leaned on a crate that wasn't there, and I fell to the floor. Now, the crate might not have been real, but the floor was. Talk about a breaking immersion, I almost broke my arm. And keep in mind that both of these experiences were in really low fidelity video games. There was nothing photorealistic about them. They weren't rendered in Unreal 5.2. This was almost 8 years ago. And just last month, podcaster Lex Friedman held a 1-hour interview with Mark Zuckerberg. They were in VR using what Meta calls codec avatars. Lex finds it hard to find words to describe what he's experiencing because it feels so real, and it kind of freaks him out a bit, because that's what happens when you mess with someone's reality. Today, creating these realistic avatars using the codecs from Meta require a couple of hours of expensive scanning equipment. And Meta's already working on moving that to the mobile phone though. Over the next few years, creating these avatars will move from centralized scanning centers you have to fly to where everyone will have one in their pocket. Within 5 years, we should have affordable, comfortable mixed reality headsets, codec realistic avatars, and the ability to be in the same room with almost anyone, anywhere, anytime. I won't need to record virtual keynotes because I'll just put on my headset and we'll be in a room together. That is why everyone is going to want to be in VR, because communication is the essence of human life. And we all crave connection, and we need it more than ever. Recent studies show that social exclusion and isolation activates physical pain networks in the brain. Other studies have shown that loneliness decreases our lifespan. And the Surgeon General of the United States called loneliness, isolation, and social disconnection an epidemic this year. But over the last decade, the percentage of people who want to go out on weekends has decreased. It's gone from 37 to 53% of the people would rather stay home. Virtual telepresence can help us reconnect with one another without forcing anyone to put on pants and go outside. Now, Chris Milk, the VR director, famously called VR an empathy engine because of its ability to connect people with each other through shared experiences. And we all know the world can use more empathy right now. Virtual telepresence is the key to that connection and empathy. Creative developers, hopefully some of you in this room today, are going to create all kinds of ways for people to do things together in VR. Walkabout Mini Golf is a great example of a game where people can come together and socialize. Video games, book clubs, watch parties, poker and card games, board games, you name it, it's going to happen. Co-working spaces will be everywhere. And instead of gather by geography, We'll be able to work with people who have shared interests. More of our work and our play is going to be done in virtual reality spaces. It's going to be like the Star Trek transporter for our consciousness. Scotty, beam me down to my mom's house. We'll be able to send our consciousness anywhere we dream, into a new reality where anything is possible. Teleporting anywhere we want to go to be with anyone we want to be with. You think cat videos are addicting? You ain't seen nothing yet. People won't be able to get enough. As the tools and the technologies continue to develop, at some point, all those experiences will begin to connect to one another. It might take another decade, but as we spend more and more time doing more things in virtual reality, one day we're gonna wake up and say, fuck, I'm in the metaverse. And it won't be Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse or Tim Cook's metaverse. It's not something that someone is going to build. It's something everyone is going to build. It's going to be your metaverse, our metaverse. As long as we hold the belief that we can build a new reality where possibilities are only limited by our imagination, I can't wait to see what you build. I thank you all for being here and being a part of that new reality, for the opportunity to share my reality with you.